Silent signals. Have you ever felt a quiet voice inside, softly yet persistently reminding you, this isn't working for me anymore? Maybe you're in a job that pays the bills but leaves your soul empty, or you're surrounded by people who don't inspire you. Perhaps you've been feeling uneasy, like something in your life doesn't quite fit, but you just can't pinpoint what it is. The routines you've grown used to, the patterns you've accepted, they're starting to feel hollow. What used to bring you comfort now feels like a weight you can't shake. The more you try to ignore this feeling, the harder your simplest day-to-day tasks become. It starts off subtle at first, like a flicker of discomfort or a restless thought that you brush aside. Over time, it grows louder, showing up as dissatisfaction or feeling off in moments that should bring joy. These are not random occurrences. They're silent signals. This is your spirit's way of shouting at you to wake up and pay attention. Simple but life-changing once you grasp this idea. Like, of course, growing pains aren't just physical, they're spiritual too. How could they not be? It feels almost selfish to think that only the body endures growing pains while the spirit remains stagnant. Unlike physical aches, spiritual growing pains aren't so obvious. They're easy to dismiss because you can't see them, and society doesn't validate them the way it does a sprained ankle or a fever. They're harder to pinpoint because they manifest as intangibles like procrastination, fatigue, frustration, or the sudden lack of interest in things you once loved. They creep into the spaces of your life, slowing your progress, making everything feel just a little harder than it should be. It feels like an aha moment when you recognize this for the first time. And once you do, you're left with a choice. Ignore the signals or lean in and let those nudges guide you. Because what you resist will only persist. Thing about it is these whispers don't just want your attention, they demand it. You can ignore them all you like, but they don't go away. They only amplify. You'll find yourself feeling restless in a job that once felt secure or disconnected from relationships that once brought joy. The simplest routines will start to feel like a chore. What's happening here is your spirit is trying to pull you out of complacency. When your spirit is out of alignment, your body and mind soon follow. Problem is, we've been conditioned to tune out these signals. Life moves fast, and we're taught to prioritize productivity over reflection, to push through discomfort rather than pause and question its origin. We learn how to distract ourselves instead of reflecting on what's wrong. We lean on the noise of our daily life, the endless responsibilities, the lure of social media, the constant flood of information, all to drown out the noise inside. But the whispers don't stop. They're stubborn. They show up in the form of missed opportunities, burnout, or a growing sense of unease that we can't shake. They persist because, believe it or not, they are trying to save you from a mundane life of stagnation. Listening to these whispers requires courage. It means stepping back from the noise of the world and turning inward. It means being honest with yourself about what isn't working and daring to imagine a different path. It's not about making drastic changes overnight, but about acknowledging that the life you've been living no longer fits who you are becoming. Those feelings of discomfort are proof that you are ready to embrace growth. That restlessness is a sign that you're outgrowing your current reality. Your spirit knows when it's time to evolve, even when your mind fights to hold on to the familiar. That whisper inside you, the one saying, "You're capable of more," isn't there to torment you. It's there to guide you toward the person you're meant to become. Lean into it. Pause and reflect when the whispers start to grow louder. Instead of asking, "Why am I feeling this way?" ask, "What is this trying to show me? Where can I do different?" These signals are not obstacles, They're invitations, gentle nudges urging you to realign with a more fulfilling path. These signals are not your enemy. They are your inner compass, pointing you toward growth and alignment, whose only job is to guide you toward a version of yourself that's waiting to be discovered. A version that is more in tune, more fulfilled, and undeniably authentic. The question is, will you listen? Complacency is a serial killer. Comfort has a seductive pull. It promises safety, predictability, and relief from the unknown. At first, it feels like a refuge from the chaos of the world, but over time, comfort can transform into a silent prison, restricting your growth and potential without you even realizing it. This is the paradox of complacency. What once felt like a sanctuary becomes the very thing holding you back. If complacency had a face, it wouldn't appear menacing. It would smile at you warmly, wrap you in comfort, and assure you that everything is just good enough. Complacency is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come crashing through the door. It creeps in quietly, disguised as contentment. But days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into years, and before you know it, you're standing in the same spot you swore you'd leave behind. Really think about it. How many times have you told yourself that you are going to start doing something that could potentially be better for you, but you still haven't started? Or maybe you have started and quickly put it to a halt because of the first inconvenience. How often do you find yourself daydreaming about a different life, only to dismiss those thoughts as unrealistic? How many times have you settled for less because the risk of trying seemed too high? This is the cage of complacency in action. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than risking failure or uncertainty. Every time you choose familiarity over growth, you allow complacency to take another life. Think of all the ideas, dreams, and goals that have been snuffed out by complacency. Multi-million-dollar visions left unrealized, groundbreaking opportunities that never saw the light of day. Just really think about the countless dreams you have on a normal basis, yet die at the hands of complacency. That groundbreaking business idea you thought of years ago, dead because you didn't believe it could work. The health goal you promised to prioritize, sacrificed because you didn't want to face the discomfort of change. The relationships you neglected, the opportunities you let slip away, the potential you buried, all casualties of the same quiet killer. You can see how it's not just an individual killer, but a mass destroyer of potential. Couple in the world around you thrives on your complacency. Advertisements, social media, even societal norms, they're designed to keep you passive, to distract you from questioning your choices or envisioning something better. You can change this entire script. No worries. To escape complacency's grip, you must first recognize its presence. One of complacency's tactics is making you forget what's possible. It tricks you into believing that dreams are impractical, that you're too old to start fresh, or that someone else is better suited for success. It'll make you believe you have to have this first in order for you to get started. This is a show of how complacency can operate in the shadows of your comfort zone, disguising itself as peace when it's really stagnation. Its power lies in its ability to go unnoticed. The moment you shine a light on it, its grip weakens. Start by asking yourself the hard questions. Where have I settled? What dreams have I left dormant? Am I genuinely satisfied, or am I simply comfortable? These questions act as the mirror that complacency fears most, because they force you to confront the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Breaking free from this script requires a conscious decision to disrupt your routine, to introduce small, intentional shifts. Pay attention to the areas of your life where you feel stuck, where comfort has turned into complacency. Challenge the patterns you've normalized and ask yourself, am I living the life I want, or just the one I've settled for? From there, take action, any action. Is it your career, your relationships, or perhaps your personal goals? Once you've pinpointed it, take small, deliberate actions to disrupt the routine. This could be as simple as learning a new skill or stepping into a new environment. These small shifts you take create momentum, gradually expanding your comfort zone without overwhelming you. Breaking free also requires a shift in mindset. Start by reframing your relationship with discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, view it as a necessary catalyst for growth. Discomfort is often the first sign that you're on the brink of a transformation. It's not a punishment, but a guide, urging you to move beyond the limits you've unconsciously set for yourself. To illustrate, think about the process of building muscle. When you work out, your muscles experience tiny tears that are repaired during rest, leading to increased strength. How amazing is that? You are tearing your muscle fibers, and they are in turn rebuilding bigger and stronger. Growth, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, follows a similar pattern. It requires effort, discomfort, and the willingness to endure temporary pain for long-term gain. The more you lean into discomfort, the more you realize how much you're capable of. You start to see that what you once thought of as limits were merely illusions, built by fear and reinforced by habit. Your ideas, your perspective, your unique gifts, they don't exist for you to keep hidden. Don't continue to rob the world of the gifts only you have to offer. Breaking patterns that keep you stuck. It's one thing to recognize that you're stuck. It's another thing to break free from those cycles that keep you there. When you resist change for too long, life has a way of making the decision for you. Silent signals will almost force you out of the spaces that no longer serve you. Not as a punishment, but more so a correction. The reason change feels so hard isn't just because of fear. It's because your patterns are too familiar. We all have patterns, subconscious loops we repeat without thinking. They're built from years of conditioning, past experiences, fears, and comfort zones we refuse to leave. Maybe you always talk yourself out of taking risks. Maybe you overthink every decision until you convince yourself to do nothing at all. Or you self-sabotage just when things start going right. Patterns like this don't just show up randomly into your life. They've been active in the background, shaping your choices, shaping your reactions, and ultimately your reality. Change is overwhelming when you look at it as a massive all-or-nothing leap. Don't expect to upend your entire life overnight. Real, lasting change starts small. It starts the moment you stop resisting and begin responding to the signals. The moment you start acknowledging what isn't working for you without making excuses for it. This is not about chasing some perfect version of yourself. This is about getting real with yourself and making adjustments in the areas where you've been out of sync. That could mean setting boundaries in those relationships that drain you. Maybe it means walking away from something that no longer fits you, that you once thought you couldn't live without. Or it could mean you are finally beginning to take action on a goal you've been putting off until you see it through. Change doesn't have to be drastic to be effective. Small shifts create the biggest momentum. Just do one thing differently today. If you have a habit of talking yourself out of things, say yes this time instead of no. If you tend to always start and stop at something, or hop from one unfinished project to the next unfinished project, do different. Commit to seeing one thing through, this one time. If you are one who always prioritizes other people's needs over your own, choose yourself this time for once, with the same care and urgency as you would if it were someone else. Change doesn't have to be big. It just has to be different. It will feel unnatural at first, because your brain is wired for familiarity. The moment you start doing things differently, resistance will show up disguised as self-doubt, fear, procrastination, and overthinking. This does not mean to stop. Push through the initial discomfort. Don't retreat at the first sign of resistance. This is the proof that you're breaking free. This is where your transformation begins. You are no longer waiting for the perfect conditions, you are creating them. You are deciding that nothing outside of you needs to change before you start. You are going to start now and see it through, because that is what you decide to do. Just like that. You'll soon notice the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the belief that change is harder than staying the same. But since you've already felt the discomfort of stagnation, you've already long wrestled with the frustration of knowing that you're capable of so much more and not acting on it. You should know by now that staying the same isn't easy either. Choose the discomfort that leads to something greater. If you're willing to do that, then you are already halfway closer to becoming that person you were always meant to be. I can't wait to see you win.